What's going on, Wiz Nation? What's going on, Mystics Nation? It's your main man, DC Hoopla, back with another video. And today I'm going to be discussing the Spencer Dinwiddie trade that was completed yesterday. Now, this trade has been going on for about the past week. You know, the Wizards had a lot of different moving parts involved in this trade. Players being asked to be sent over to other teams. You know, GMs rejecting it. But this Spencer Dinwiddie trade turned into a 5-team trade because Spencer Dinwiddie was thrown into the Russell Westbrook trade, which that trade, I believe, becomes official as of tomorrow. So, you know, myself and my man Wiz Takes, we both are looking at it like, was it really worth going through all this trouble for Spencer Dinwiddie? Now, a lot of people on social media, especially on Twitter that I follow, are happy about this. And Spencer Dinwiddie is not a bad player. But Spencer Dinwiddie has been plagued with injuries. You know, he missed all last season, so people are expecting him to play the way he did before he got injured. Spencer Dinwiddie is 28, so he's in his prime years right now. Now, one thing I can say about Spencer Dinwiddie before he got injured was that he was a wizard killer. You know, he was always one of the reasons why we would lose to the Brooklyn Nets before they made, you know, the trades for Kyrie, well, not trades, but signing Kyrie and KD and trading for Harden. You know, the Brooklyn Nets were not a bad team. They were a scrappy team, and Spencer Dinwiddie and Karis LeVert, they were two players that used to give us fits. But Spencer Dinwiddie was definitely one of the main ones, along with Jared Allen, who now plays for Cleveland. So the Spencer Dinwiddie that we saw like in the 2018-2019 season, 2019-2020 season is the player that people are expecting. But I must repeat that he missed last season due to an ACL injury. And we all know with ACL injuries, it takes players sometimes a year and a half to sometimes even 2 years for them to actually turn into something. So the deal that Spencer Dinwiddie signed and got traded to the Wizards is a 3-year deal for $60 million. Now, that's a lot of money to be paying to a guy who's coming off an injury like an ACL. But is he a serviceable guard? Yes, he is. You know, some people would say that he's more of a backup that we're trying to turn into a starter. You know, he did start when he played for Brooklyn, but we'll have to see what he can bring us. But let's talk about the pieces that were involved to make this trade happen. So as I said in the beginning, this was a 5-team trade. So you had the Lakers, you had the Brooklyn Nets, you had the Pacers, and you had San Antonio involved in this trade. So that's the Lakers, the Wiz, the Pacers, the Spurs, and I believe I mentioned the Nets. I think I did. So there's so many damn teams. It's not too often that you see a 5-team trade. So Aaron Holiday, the trade that happened, you know, with the Lakers, he was included in this trade. The Spurs actually got the second-round picks that we were sending to the Lakers, which they were a 2025 and a 2028 second-round pick. That's now going to San Antonio. I believe the Wiz sent a second-rounder to... I believe they sent another second-rounder to the Brooklyn Nets. Second-rounders was flying around. I'm in the minority because I value draft picks, whether they're first or second. Some people look at it, but second rounds don't mean, picks don't mean nothing. But if you think about it, Chris Middleton was a second-round pick. Look at him. Gilbert Arenas at one point was a second-round pick. Michael Redd was a second-round pick. Like, there are some players who were picked in the second round that actually turned into something. Manu Ginobili was a late second-round pick, and he's a future Hall of Famer. So it all depends on the organization. See, the reason why a lot of people in Washington don't value second round picks is because the organization doesn't value second round picks, because the organization sucks at drafting any damn way. So they feel like it's better to throw those picks away, being so we suck at drafting. But I would have to say this. We didn't give up anything major to make this deal happen. Now, Denny Abdia's name was mentioned in there because the Brooklyn Nets wanted Denny Abdia, and kudos to Tommy for not giving him up. I'm glad that he didn't give up any of our young players for Spencer Dinwiddie, because in my opinion, it wasn't worth giving up, your future for Spencer Dinwiddie. Even though we gave up second round picks, but it was good to see that we just didn't give up a future young piece that we haven't developed yet, because we're known to do that any damn way. We're known to either not re-sign that player, or we're known to throw them in a trade. We did it, just a few months ago when it came down to Troy Brown Jr. Wasn't a big fan of Troy Brown Jr., but we did. That was a player that we drafted, that we sent away. Now, that could be due to, that wasn't Tommy's guy, because Tommy wasn't the one who drafted him. It was Ernie Grunfeld, but still. So, with this deal, it's kind of a deal to me. I'm not, all on the Spencer Dinwiddie train. I saw people on there calling it Bill Whitty and or Din Bill and all this stuff, trying to create names. I'm not really on that train with everybody else. The moves that the Wizards make now, I'm really looking at them much more tough now. And I'm trying to make sense of some of these moves. Okay? Now, we did re-sign Hal Neto, which I had no problem with us re-signing Hal Neto. He's a scrappy backup point guard. I think he's more so of insurance, just in case Spencer Dinwiddie has injury-plagued seasons. If Aaron Holiday is not cutting it. So I didn't really have a problem with Hal Neto. Now, here's where I think people need to really understand when it comes down to the Wiz. And these are for the people who try to make sense and try to say that, because they always go back to, well, the Wizards was able to move John Wall's unmovable contract. It always starts with that. Fans always go back to that. Well, they were able to move his unmovable contract. Well, you need to stop saying it's unmovable, because we were able to move the contract. So it's no need to put unmovable in front of it, because it was movable. We did it. We had to throw a future first involved in that to make it happen, but we were able to move the contract. And he really was only on our books for 2 seasons? The contract just went in, so his contract wasn't even there for a long time. And I think what people also need to realize is that, the salary cap situation that the Wizards had, that actually didn't begin until Jan Mahinmi and Otto Porter got their contracts. So John Wall's Supermax didn't even kick in yet, and we were already in cap hell. And we're somewhat still in cap hell, because the whole purpose of this trade was to make sure we didn't go over the luxury tax. Now, memory serves correct. In the month of June, wasn't there an article where Ted Leonsis said he would be willing to pay into the luxury tax? He said this to put up a good team, to put up a championship contending team. He said he was willing to go into the luxury tax. But the trade for Dinwiddie, this was all in the pieces that was involved. It was all about getting under the luxury tax. See, that's why when I read that article by Ted Leonsis, I didn't buy it. Because I know that Ted doesn't pay he won't pay over the luxury tax. Abe Poland wasn't even willing to pay over the luxury tax. So I didn't buy that, not one bit. And I'm going to touch on Ted a little bit later too, about an article, and I'm pretty sure everybody's seen it. I'm going to touch on my opinion when it came down to the comments that he made about Russell Westbrook. But this deal was just more so about getting under the salary cap and getting Spencer Dinwiddie. But let me go back to KCP, Andre Harrell. I call it Andre Harrell. I'm sorry, Montrezl Harrell. Rest in peace to Andre Harrell. But Montrezl Harrell and Kyle Kuzma that we got from the Lakers. Now, I don't think that Kyle Kuzma and maybe Harrell are going to suit up in a Wizards uniform. I think that they're going to get moved for something. And it's not going to be nothing spectacular. These are expiring contracts that some teams are going to want. But I think when we move these guys, we may have to just take whatever we can get, or we probably might just ask for like second round picks. And maybe that's probably what we'll try to get. It's a second round pick in return. But we got a lot of picks that are actually owed to quite a few teams. So with the trade yesterday, I would give the trade, I give it a C. It's not an A, it's not a B. Yeah, we got a point guard, but in my opinion, when you think about it, when you go from having John Wall to having Westbrook down to Dinwiddie, you kind of downgrade, okay? So let's keep it a buck. I mean, the offense probably is going to be ran a little bit different. One thing we know for a fact, we're not going to see the the guard dominant type offense that we saw last season, where Bradley Beal and Westbrook dominates the basketball all the time. I don't think Spencer Dinwiddie is going to be dishing out anywhere between 9 to 10 assists a game either, because that's not what he's known to do. Dinwiddie is more of a combo guard. He's not a traditional point guard, so he's a guard that can score. I don't know exactly what Wes Unseld Jr.'s philosophy is going to be, but one thing he said in his presser was that defense is going to be the main thing that he's going to focus on. So when it comes down to defense, I would have to look at how Spencer Dinwiddie is when it comes down to defense. I still see this team so far as a team that will be battling in the play-in. And once again, Tommy Shepard said that was not going to be acceptable as far as being a first-round exit team. But the way this team is constructed right now, it is. When you look at the Eastern Conference, looking at how Chicago has gotten better, how the Knicks improved on to what they have, you're still battling teams that you got to respect. You got to respect Chicago. It looks good on paper, but I think they'll get it together. But they look good on paper. You got Zach LaVine. I'm not really a big fan of Lonzo Ball, but if I had to choose between Lonzo Ball and Spencer Dinwiddie, I would take Lonzo Ball over Spencer Dinwiddie. They still got Kobe White over there. You look at the Knicks, the OKC Thunder and Kemba Walker agreed to a buyout. Kemba Walker signing with the Knicks. Derrick Rose went back to New York. I mean, come on, that's not a bad team, man. They got a nice little squad going on over there. Then, of course, you got the champs, the Bucks. The 76ers, they just got, Drummond. So, hey, Drummond comes to back up Embiid. I mean, the East has gotten better. Atlanta's going to be Atlanta. This is a team that went to the Eastern Conference. So, I think that the Wizards are going to be in a battle again where they're trying to get into the play. Now, they may be anywhere between a 6th or an 8th seed. But the thing is, depending on that, if they're a 6th or an 8th seed, they got to battle in that play-in, especially if they're the 7th or the 8th. And if you're the 7th or the 8th seed, and let's say the Milwaukee Bucks is the number 1 team in the East, and let's say, I don't know, I'm not going to say Chicago is going to be number 2. I might say with their roster, they could be number 3. Let's just say the Knicks are the number 2 seed in the East, and you're the 7th seed. When you look at both teams, the only thing we have is more depth. We just got more guys to throw at the New York Knicks. But at the end of the day, the Knicks are a well-coached team that's going to practice defense as well. But when you add a guy like Kemba Walker, and you got Derrick Rose back, and Kemba Walker, if he's inspired to play better than he did and play like the way he did in 2019-2020 season, I mean, if he starts to play like that, that is going to be a serious problem for us, a serious matchup problem that we're not going to be able to hang. But the key is, do we get to the playoffs? If we start off sluggish, that may change Bradley Beal's mind as far as staying here long term. I've already spoken about Bradley Beal in one of my last episodes, and I'm not going to really speak about him again because, my listeners should know where I stand when it comes down to him. So, when it comes down to the Dinwiddie trade, I give it a C. It's more like a trade. I'm not really all excited about it like everybody else is, and trying to make it sound like it's real great. I mean, where people are out here acting like Spencer Dinwiddie is like a up and coming superstar, when in reality Spencer Dinwiddie is pretty much a third tier player. But we're acting like he's second tier or even first tier. Some people say, nah, man, you guys just hate just to be hate. Let me explain something to the listeners out there that want to sit there and say those things. You got to understand, this organization has failed the fan base for over 40 plus years. 40 plus years. And all of a sudden, I'm supposed to have this attitude of like, oh man, they finally doing something right, this, that, and the third. It's going to take time. You got to be consistent. If you're in an abusive relationship, do you think automatically, because somebody say, you know what, I'm going to stop hitting you today, that you're going to really buy into it? If they've been whooping your ass for years, are you going to really buy into the fact that they're going to stop slapping the shit out of you just because they say it? No, they gotta be consistent, right? They gotta show you. So when it comes down to the Wiz, they gotta be consistent and show me season after season that they have finally learned from their previous mistakes. Because when you pass up an offer that the Wizards did on draft night, to me, it's very, very challenging for me to believe that they have actually turned the corner and they finally got it right. So that's all I got to say about that. Now let me touch on Ted Leonsis. So Ted Leonsis' statements he made about Westbrook when Westbrook asked for a trade. And he talked about the fact that Westbrook, asked for a trade out of OKC, asked for a trade out of Houston, and then of course he asked for a trade out of Washington. So in one breath, Ted Leonsis was appreciative of what Westbrook brought when he came here. But what he didn't appreciate was the fact that Westbrook wanted out. And then what Ted decided to do was compare Westbrook's situation to Ovi's situation when he came down to talking about loyalty. Well, FYI, Ted Leonsis, Ovechkin was homegrown. You drafted Ovechkin. Westbrook was not drafted by the Wizards. He was traded here. Okay? You're mad because he decided to leave and go to LA. I gave Westbrook a lot of shit. I gave him a lot of shit. But I respect the fact that he really decided, hey, you know what? Me putting up these numbers don't mean anything if I don't have a championship. I had to respect that because he finally had that aha moment and said, it's nothing else that I need to prove except that I can win a title. And that's where he is. The man is 32. He's going to be 33 years old. He doesn't want to waste his now wrong side of 30 years not winning a championship on a team that's not trying to build for a championship themselves. Now, the real reason why Ted was so upset is because Ted was hoping that Westbrook will be here so he can make more money off of him. He knows he's not going to make no money off of Spencer Dinwiddie and Bradley Beal. But he knew he could make money off of Westbrook, so he was mad because his cash cow was gone. But I found it very, very irresponsible for him to compare Westbrook to Ovechkin when Ovechkin was drafted by the Capitals and Westbrook was not drafted by the Wizards. When you talk about loyalty, you had a player who was loyalty in John Wall, who had no intentions of leaving, who said he always thought that he'll be in the building at the Capital One Arena. But even when you traded him, you said some slick shit about him too. So for those who say, well, they didn't really see nothing wrong with Ted, well, maybe with this explanation, maybe you'll probably look at it differently. If you read the comments that he said, and he's talking about loyalty, everybody saw those comments. Future free agents saw those comments. Those comments are not positive comments. Why would a free agent want to come and play for an owner who feels like that? Now, some people probably might look at it like, if you remember, oh, well, didn't Baron Davis go through something similar like that when he played for the Clippers? when the owner, Donald Sterling, was sitting there talking shit about him in the stands. Well, guess what? Is Donald Sterling still the owner of the Clippers? No. So that's the reason why the Clippers are able to get free agents, because Donald Sterling is not there anymore. Ted Leonsis he's still the owner of this team. So those comments that he made, that can make future free agents sit there and say, man, why the hell I want to go play for an asshole like that who's saying these things? And I've given Ted nothing but the benefit of the doubt since he got here, since he's been here. But after the way the John Wall trade went about and the comments that he made after that, I couldn't give Ted Leonsis any more excuses. And these comments that he just made recently is even more proof of why I can't give him the benefit of the doubt anymore. Because Ted Leonsis is so disconnected from the NBA side to the point that he doesn't understand it. That's just how it is in the NBA. Players, they're going to go where they're going to go. There is no loyalty. I get where he's coming from. I understand where he's coming from. But there is no loyalty. I also looked at the comments as more of a warning to Bradley Beal, that if you leave, I'm going to say these things about you. Now, what I like to know is, how did Bradley Beal feel about those comments? Did he think that those comments were very tasteful? Because a lot of people have been critical about the comments that Ted Leonsis made. And they're not tasteful. It's very irresponsible for an owner to say these things. And he looked like he was whining and crying because Westbrook decided that he wasn't going to be his cash cow anymore. I don't want to compare it to slavery, but that's kind of how the way you look at it. As if, the slave decided, hey, he don't want to work for the slave master no more, and the slave master is upset that he was able to escape the plantation. It was not a good look. It was very distasteful. It was very irresponsible. It's no way in the world that I can find any type of silver lining in it. It is what it is. When you read it, it reads exactly how the way he put it out there. He was not happy that he's gone. Again, I give Westbrook credit for recognizing that, hey, you know what? A championship is more important than the personal accolades, because he's done everything he needed to do. He's a future Hall of Famer, no doubt about it. But at the end of the day, a championship is going to really, really help his legacy even more. So if Ted wants loyalty, well, you got to practice what you preach, man. Because Capital fans were mad at you when you won the Stanley Cup, and then you fired Barry Trotz after that. You didn't even keep him. So you can't sit here and talk about loyalty when you're not even loyal to your own people. You weren't loyal to John Wall, and you weren't loyal to Barry Trotz. So you need to stop it with this loyalty shit. Anyway, that ends the episode of DC Hoopla. Go follow my main man, Wiz Takes, at Wizards Mafia. Follow him on IG. Follow him on Twitter at Wizards Mafia. Subscribe to his YouTube channel. Also subscribe to his Patreon. He's on Spotify. He's on Apple Music, I believe. Follow him on there. He and I will be doing a project coming very soon. Be on the lookout for it. You will see us doing live streams. We're going to talk more Wiz Hoops. Mystics, once you guys get back to playing basketball, WNBA basketball, because right now you got, Ariel Atkinson, and you got my girl Tina Charles. They're both in the Olympics right now. But once the WNBA season starts back up, I will get back to talking about the Mystics. But at the end of the day, I definitely want you to like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Follow me on DC Hoopla on IG, and follow me on Twitter at DC Hoopla as well. Eventually, I will do some solo live streams, but again, myself, Wiz Takes, we will be doing some live streams together. Be on the lookout for that project. There is a name for it. I'm just going to keep it under wraps for right now, but be on the lookout for that. Thank you. You guys have a good one.